Hello, my name's Euan Crumley and welcome to the latest episode of the Athletics Weekly podcast. In each show, we bring you everything you need to know from the world of run, jump and throw, analysing the biggest stories and speaking to key names from the sport. It feels like only 5 minutes ago that we were looking ahead to everything that 2024 had in store for us, and now you join us as another Olympic year is drawing to a close. The December issue of AW has recently hit the shelves of the newsstands and the doormats of our subscribers, a bumper issue that looks back over the year through the eyes of the winners of our AW Readers Awards. The athletes who got your votes have been unveiled across all of the AW channels, and we've interviewed or profiled every single one of them in the magazine pages. Mondo Duplantis is among their number, and the pole vault star, serial world record breaker, and Olympic champion is not only our latest cover star, but the special guest on this episode of the podcast. The awards gave us the perfect excuse to look back over the year as a whole too, and to help me do that, I'm joined by Olympic silver medalist and AW Managing Director Wendy, as well as AW Head of Digital Jason Henderson. Welcome to you both.
Good afternoon.
So let's consider this year as we come to the end of it. Starting with you, Wendy, how would you sum it up and what do you think it will be remembered for?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because everybody's going to have a slightly different view, but I suspect there'll be an awful lot of people just like me that were perhaps thinking that 2024 was going to be a great year, but not 100% certain about how the Olympics would turn out. We had a slightly unusual Olympics back in 2016 in Rio, where the crowds were quite thin. And then, of course, 2021, which was the original Tokyo 2020 Olympics, with empty stands because of COVID. I think it was a while since we'd seen a great Olympics, and we weren't sure how Paris would perform. And for me, Paris was such a massive highlight, I think, because it immediately, any trepidation I had completely vanished. The city embraced it. The crowds were extraordinary. The Brits performed well. There were global record performances galore, national records, Olympic records, world records. So it was a fantastic Olympic Games, and I don't know that there'll be few people that won't look back on 2024 and think, wasn't Paris great?
Yeah, and you've covered a number of Olympic Games as well. How does Paris measure up in your eyes?
I think Paris is pretty good. I'd agree with Wendy. I think it was surprisingly good. I'm not sure people expected it to be quite so vibrant, but it was it all kind of clicked. I think when you're staging an event, whether it's a smallish Grand Prix meeting right the way through to the Olympics, you can never quite tell if it's going to work or not. There's often the X factor that's involved. At smaller one-day meetings, it might simply rely on whether you get a home winner in one of the events that really boosts the crowd, or whether something special happens quite early on, which livens everything up, and then you just maintain that momentum for the rest of the meeting. It's always quite hard to tell. You can try and put the fields together and create as good a meeting as possible on paper, but in reality, when it actually starts happening, it's you kind of reliant on a bit of luck to a degree. And Paris just worked. It was good weather throughout the week, good atmosphere. The home people got behind it. Great athletics, and it just all nicely clicked together.
Yeah, and it's not really a coincidence that many of our award winners that we've just announced in the magazine and online did pretty well at the Olympics. And we'll come to Mondo Duplantis shortly, but we'll start with the winners of the other sort of senior, the main categories from our awards. Our International Female Athlete of the Year she's currently been very prominent in the second series of Sprint on Netflix, is Julian Alfred. She won the World Indoor 60-meter title and then delivered an amazing performance in Paris. Wendy, she's a new kid on the block, as it were. There's been a bit of a changing the guard when it comes to female sprinting this year. What did you make of what she managed to do?
Well, she certainly put herself on the map in style, didn't she? I think it's fair to say there were a few eyes on other people in that race, and she just seemed to come out of nowhere, really. And a stunning talent that's put not just herself on the map, but her country as well. She's a national hero. So, I mean, it was a highly anticipated event, wasn't it? The women's 100-meter final, with so many great names lined up together, and some big personalities in there. And she seemed to quietly steal the show. And I think everybody loves almost an unassuming heroine. I'm sure those that train with her, including our own Dina Asher-Smith, would have known that she was a talent to be and a force to be reckoned with. And she'd obviously shown previous form to indicate that, but to win an Olympic Games is very different from winning a Diamond League or performing well on the international circuit. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how her 2025 turns out, because she's still very young. She's got an Olympic gold medal under her belt, and it's often quite difficult, I think, for people who perhaps weren't expected to win to carry on into the next year. And with such a big event at the end of 2025, it'll be really interesting to see how she performs. But also, I'm very keen to see how Dina reacts to that, because she's in that same training group out in Texas. And yeah, it's, I must admit, although you were saying, Euan, quite rightly, that 2024 seems to have gone by in a flash, I'm already looking forward to 2025 because I think that a great Olympic Games always whets the appetite for the next year. And with the World Championships at the end of next year, I think there's going to be a fantastic build-up.
Yeah, and when it comes to our main British winners in our AW awards, we'll start with the British Male Athlete of the Year, who, Jason, you said in the last episode of this podcast that he would be your pick, and it's Matthew Hudson-Smith got the votes. I mean, he had an incredible year, so narrowly missing out on Olympic 400-meter gold, European records. Consistency has been the key for him this year, hasn't it?
Yeah, a dream year. And I think what's interesting is towards the end of the season, he seemed like he was just itching to crack on and move on to another level next year. You know, he really thinks he can run even faster, get onto the top of the podium in the global championships. And I think he's certainly got his eye on Olympic gold in Los Angeles. But yeah, a dream year. It'd be interesting to see whether he can move on and capitalise on all this great form and actually do it again next year.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a very good column by Catherine Merry, who not only knows Matthew very, very well indeed from his days as a kid turning up at Birchfield's Harriers, but she also knows a fair bit about how to run the 400 metres, and she's got some really good technical insight into how a 400 is put together and how you build on that year on year. Perhaps a more foregone conclusion is not quite apt, but Keely Hodgkinson wasn't a surprise winner as our British Female Athlete of the Year. You can't really see past an Olympic champion, I don't think. And it goes back to, again, Wendy, about handling that occasion, because Keely really was expected to deliver the gold, and despite that slightly slow first 400 meter split, she made sure she got the job done.
Yes, and Trevor talks about that in a article, doesn't he, about the way she handles that high pressure and how she actually thrives on it. And actually, everything that you've just spoken about and I've just mentioned goes against what I was saying earlier. She was the one that everyone was looking at, and yet she still was able to, I guess, thrive off the hype in a way. It's a different story to that of Matt Hudson-Smith and that of Julian Alfred, but I guess that's what's so great about the stars this year. You know, everybody's had a different story, and you know, when we talk about Mondo in a minute, you know, from a child star right the way through to an Olympic champion. I mean, what a fabulous story that is, and it's I think that's the fascinating part of our sport, isn't it? there are so many individual performances out there. Of course, there are the relays, which are teams, but it's an individual sport, and everyone has got a different journey and goes on a different journey to get to Olympic champion, a world record holder, or whatever great heights they may reach. And when even now, for all of those athletes, there's a further journey for them to go on, and that's fascinating too, because they're all young and they're all at the top of their game. So that's, I say, one of the wonderful things about track and field.
Yeah, well, you've led us on very, very nicely, Wendy, to our special guest. And 2024 has been quite a year for Mondo Duplantis. He's world indoor champion in Glasgow, European champion in Rome, Olympic champion in Paris, and he broke his own world record 3 times into the bargain. He's broken the world record 10 times now in total during his career, but surely his leap of 6.25 metres in the Olympic final at the 3rd attempt is his greatest ever. The AW International Male Athlete of the Year took some time out to speak with me, and the full exclusive interview can be found in the December issue of AW. But we'll start this extract of our discussion at the point where I asked him if this was the most satisfied he's ever been with a year's work.
So I think that it's more now that I think it's sinking in, as far as like when I'm getting back in training and I'm like doing, runs and whatnot. I'm in bad shape, and I'm thinking back to what I did and what I was a couple months ago. But it takes some time, and I don't really know if it's like completely settled all the way. But I definitely think that in the past, like just really recently, like a couple of weeks, getting back into it, that I think it's hit me like a few times what has happened. What has happened this year, because it's been really special.
Yeah, is this the most satisfied you've ever been with a season or a sort of a year's work?
I mean, the Olympics is really, as far as right now, it's the only opportunity that we have to make a real global impact and make a real splash on the outside world of people that's not just your country or your country or the fans of athletics. And so I kind of knew that going into the Olympics, that it's like if I do something really special, or if I do something like a world record, then like this could be a really, really big deal. And you don't really have that opportunity other than in that moment. I broke the world record at World Championships, and I've broken the record at other big sport indoors and whatnot. And it's like, it was great, and it was fairly big, and the people in Sweden were happy about it, and it gave me good appreciation. But it's not, you don't like blow up in that way. It's not that crazy. But this was just completely different, and I think I realize a little bit like now that I just really did it at the absolute perfect moment. And like as an athlete, I guess that's kind of all you can ask for, is like you want to be able to show up and do your best performance at the moment that really matters the most. And I was able to do that. And it's like, I mean, sure, I guess there's more Olympics to come. There's LA and there's Brisbane and whatnot. But like, I did it. I did like the thing. And that is the thing, is to be one of the bigger performers of the Olympics. Like that's the pinnacle, I guess, of like, of what you can do as an athlete in track and field, and especially pole vaulting. So it's like, I'm going to forever have done that. And that's a really, I don't know, it's hard to understand almost in a way, because I feel like I've just grown up always, you watch all those Olympic gold medal jumps, and I always like envision myself like just topping that a little bit and having it as the world record. And when I'm jumping in my backyard when I was just a little kid, it was always like I'm picturing the bar, even though it's at 3 meters, being the world record height, and it's the Olympics, and it's like that is the moment. And then when it actually comes to it, I'm like, I did that, and I actually like accomplished like the actual thing that I've been setting out to do for my whole entire life, which is it's super. Yeah, it's like it's strange in a way. It's strange in a way, because once you do it, you there's so many things that change, but then there's more things that stay the same.
Yeah.
In a way, it's like life is, it's still what it is, and I'm still jumping, and I'm still motivated, and I still want to do stuff, and I'm still excited for the next year, and I'm still in not that good a shape right now, and I want to get in better shape, and like you still have all like the similar things, even though there's just more stuff that comes in and more obligations and whatnot. But like other than that, and more eyeballs maybe, but other than that, it's like still the same. And like I guess as humans, you just adapt to whatever situation it is, whether it's amazing or whether it's really bad. It's like you adapt to the whatever you're given, and it's like I feel like you're just kind of adapted to it.
Yeah. It's because it must be a strange dynamic for you, because as you say, if you jump as you can,
Mm-hmm.
you should win. The crowd knows that, your competitors know that, so it must be quite a thing to be able to, or to have to deal with every time you're stepping out there like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, but I mean, I think I don't really think of it like that though. I think that could be harder. I mean, it could be like I have to jump out of my shoes to win. I mean, there's a reason why I'm a favorite going into the competitions, and I know that that's just because of what I've shown and my abilities when I step out there into the track and I'm jumping. So for me, I just try to keep it as simple as possible, and get the most out of myself on that day, and just make sure that no matter what, there's no regrets, and I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to use all the information that I've gained past over 20 years of jumping, and I'm just going to try to make the best decision with my parents on what to do at each height and what to do at each jump, and try to use what I know and what I know about Ovaltine and my body and the way I'm jumping and what the day has given me to make the best decision to try to maximize my height that day. And that's really all you can do.
Thanks again to Mondo for taking the time to chat. Wendy, what have you made of how he's progressed in recent years? He's really sort of put himself in his own category, almost in a league of his own when it comes to the pole vault.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I was remembering the first time I met Mondo, and it was back in Eugene in 2017. And goodness me, he was only a teenager, and still one of the main athletes of the event back then. And he's carried on that great form over those 7 years. And as you say, Euan, breaking world records. I've been privileged to see several of them in person, and his composure is quite extraordinary. He loves a quiet stadium, and he loves everybody watching him in the pole vault, and he just takes his time. He quite often leaves it till the very last second before he hits the runway, but his family talk a lot about letting him decide where he is in terms of the amount of training he wants to do and how he wants to execute an event. And I think that shows really in his relaxed approach to it all. I don't think he feels too much pressure from outside, and he seems a very happy young man, loving his sport. And I think what's great about him is he's extremely approachable. He'll chat to us, he'll chat to a crowd, he'll be on the cover of Scandinavian Vogue. He seems to be able to do all of those things and almost behave the same, which is a lovely attribute. But I think it's just the consistency that strikes me. He comes out every time, and with very few blips, he'll perform to the crowd, and very, very often breaks the world record with, say, the last event of the day. Quite often the broadcast has come off air, and there he is still out there entertaining, and he's a great asset for our sport, without question.
Yeah, and Jason, we're at a point just now where so much more of the attention goes towards track events, whereas, you know, Mondo is stealing the show, almost flying the flag a bit when it comes to field eventers as well.
He is, although probably the biggest headlines he got all year was when he beat Carsten Warmer home in a 100-meter sprint, which showed what a great, you know, all-round athlete he is. You know, he's not just good with the technicalities of using a pole to get over a bar. You know, he's just a great athlete, full stop, which he showed that day in Zurich. Yeah, I mean, he's, as Wendy says, he's just a fantastic ambassador, isn't he? He's such a nice guy, charismatic, good-looking chap. You know, there's probably not that many athletes who can grace the front cover of a Vogue magazine, but yeah, he gets away with it quite easily.
Yeah, but I think the main thing that strikes me when you speak to him or meet him, or even when you watch him in action, is he's unhurried by anything. He operates at just his pace, Jason.
Yeah, no, he's Mr. Cool, isn't he? Just as Wendy says, he takes everything in his stride. Whether there's a massive crowd watching him with all the pressure, he seems to thrive off that. If the stadium is largely empty and he can still perform, you know, he just literally, it looks like nothing phases him. Absolutely nothing phases him, which is one of the many reasons why he's the master of his art, and you can't really see him being beaten by any of the pole vaulters anytime soon.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to what he's got up his sleeve next, and for so many of these other athletes with World Championships year about to come on the horizon. There's so much to look forward to, but that's for the next episode of the Athletics Weekly podcast. For now, thank you, Wendy and Jason, for joining me, and that's all from this episode of the Athletics Weekly podcast. In the meantime, the December issue of AW is out now, available via athleticsweekly.com or selected retailers. You can also keep right up to date with the latest athletics news by heading to athleticsweekly.com and following the AW social media channels. Please like and subscribe to the AW podcast on your usual podcast platform. And on behalf of the whole Athletics Weekly team, have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See you in 2025.